Over a month since Hamas militants took over 240 people hostage from Israel, the US and Israeli officials say there is more progress in knowing about their status as of now. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said the Biden administration is working round the clock to get the hostages back. Sullivan is meeting representatives of the family members of the hostages on Tuesday. In fact, he told a press briefing that 9 Americans are currently unaccounted for, along with 1 US green card holder, while declining to give much information about the status of the hostages. Sullivan said that the US did have information about some of them. Biden's top aide also confirmed that the US is involved in the hostage release negotiations with the Israelis and the Qataris. A US news report has quoted a high-ranking Israeli official saying that Israel and Hamas are close to a hostage deal. The tentative agreement calls for Israeli women and children to be released in groups. Simultaneously, Israel would release Palestinian women and young people held in Israeli prisons. The agreement could be announced within coming days if it goes through. According to the report, Israel wants all 100 women and children taken from Israel released. But Hamas has indicated that it will release 70 women and children. According to the high-ranking Israeli official, a temporary ceasefire of 5 days can accompany the exchange of hostages and prisoners. The truce will allow safe travel for the Israeli captives. It could also allow for more international assistance to Palestinian civilians in Gaza that will ease the humanitarian crisis. The situation in West Asia remains tense. Almost 6 weeks into this war, Israeli strikes have flattened substantial parts of Gaza. Today, I'm going to go through battleground Gaza and the different theaters where the war is unfolding and the impact that it's leaving on the ground. The only lifeline giving the Palestinians hope were the hospitals. The complete blockade and Hamas hiding strategy, as claimed by Israel, has made matters worse. For days now, hospitals and medical facilities have become a key target of relentless bombardment. Hamas's health ministry has claimed that all hospitals in North Gaza are out of service. Medical services can barely be administered in northern Gaza. This includes the 2 biggest hospitals in the Gaza Strip, which have been rendered out of service. I'm talking about the Al-Shifa and the Al-Quds hospitals in Gaza City. They have suspended operations. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization managed to speak to health professionals at the Al-Shifa hospital. They described a dire and perilous situation, and it was not functioning as a hospital anymore, they said. All this because of constant gunfire and bombing, which has exacerbated the already critical situation. According to reports, the WHO also talked about the ordeal of doctors. Doctors in Gaza say dead bodies are beginning to pile up both inside and outside the hospital. The WHO describes the situation at the hospital as functioning more like a cemetery. The situation in Gaza's largest hospital is appalling. Premature babies who were placed in incubators are now being wrapped in foil and placed next to hot water in a desperate bid to keep them alive. As of now, a total of 7 premature babies and 27 critical patients have died in Al-Shifa hospital. According to the deputy health minister in the Hamas-run Gaza Strip, they fear the death toll among patients will rise in the coming hours. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry further added at least 2,300 people are still inside Al-Shifa hospital. In an update shared by the WHO, a doctor in the region said that Al-Shifa can no longer accept patients. Ambulances have stopped evacuating the wounded Palestinians and bringing them to Al-Shifa. The staff inside says that it is impossible to leave without risking injury or death. Medical workers are warning of rising casualties among patients. According to the US humanitarian agency, 20 of Gaza's 36 hospitals are no longer functioning since Israel announced a complete siege of the Strip. According to multiple reports, there is no food and no fuel to run generators. Solar energy is being used to power a few critical systems. Seeing the situation unfolding in Gaza, the United States President Joe Biden has said that Gaza's largest hospital must be protected as Israeli tanks surround the facility with hundreds of patients and staff trapped inside. While the United Nations has demanded all parties should uphold and respect their obligations under international humanitarian law, now let's talk about Gaza, where Gaza's parliament building is located. An image circulating on social media shows troops of IDF's 13th Battalion, the Golani Brigade, inside the parliament building. The image is on your screens now. They are raising the Israeli flag inside the Hamas militant seats of political power after the IDF troops captured the site. The Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant, also said that Hamas has lost control in the Gaza Strip as the Israel Defense Forces move to fully capture Gaza City. He added that terrorists are fleeing south, civilians are looting Hamas bases, and they have no confidence in the government. Within hours of the Israel Defense Minister's announcement, rockets were seen being launched towards Israel from Gaza. Sirens were also heard in central Israel. But as seen from Sderot, the missiles were intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome. Although, according to the Ashkelon Coast Regional Council, one particular rocket fell in the region. No injuries were reported, but buildings and vehicles were damaged. As rockets were fired into Israel in southern Gaza, hundreds of thousands of refugees are in the midst of a humanitarian crisis that is deepening by the hour and pushing every possible safety net to the brink. People are washing themselves in polluted seawater, sleeping in packed tents, eating what little bread they can find, and on some days, none at all. The people are coming from Gaza's north, fleeing Israel's bombing campaign, some with a few possessions, but most bearing only their children and clothes on their back. At the Rafah crossing, the first group of foreigners and injured Palestinians evacuated after the Rafah border crossing reopened. According to reports, the group that entered into Egypt comprised 7 injured Gaza residents along with more than 80 foreign nationals and their dependents. The border crossing was closed for nearly 2 days since November 10th due to issues related to the transportation of injured Palestinians from northern Gaza. With the border crossing reopening, around 88 trucks arrived in the Gaza Strip from Egypt. With the reopening of the Rafah crossing, there are fears of a wider regional conflict in West Asia as cross-border hostilities between Israeli military and Hezbollah continue. The militant Hezbollah group fired anti-tank missiles towards Israeli troops near the border's western sector. In retaliation, Israeli defense forces carried out airstrikes along the country's border with Lebanon. The IDF claimed that the targets included terror infrastructure, weapons storage compounds, and an operational command center used by Hezbollah. There are also reports of a convoy of journalists that came under attack near the Lebanese border. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.